Okay, this will be exciting today. Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait until we are officially live on a few different platforms. We may have some people joining us live today on LinkedIn. We may not, Andrea. It just might be the two of us.
I know we should be drinking some sparkling water, something fun for this.
We should. We should. I have my water right here. Well, this will be exciting. Everyone, I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Rise Up Consulting, and we specialize in helping corporate sales leadership teams empower their sales leaders so that they have a direct impact on recruiting, retention, and revenue. And this week, for the lessons from the Leaderboard to Leadership, I have Andrea Fayville with me, and she is going to be sharing some of her tidbits and lessons and perspective. And I have known Andrea for probably 2 years. Is that correct?
Close. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, close to 2 years. And she's been a client of mine for most of that time. So it's been really fun. So I've actually had a front seat to her whole progression. And so we're going to get into that a little bit. But Andrea, do you want to introduce yourself and kind of give us a tidbit on how your journey, just how you got to where you are right now?
Sure. So, as Rebecca has already done a fantastic job of, my name is Andrea Fayville. I am a sales professional and field director in the ARNT agency. And my husband and I live down here in beautiful Rapid City, South Dakota. And it's been a whirlwind these last 2 years. It's hard to believe it that it has been that long and that short of a time all at the same time. So it's been exciting.
Can you give us, because you are not a 40-year sales veteran, I
Yes.
don't even think you're 40 years old, but can you give us like your story? Because you went from sales to sales leadership pretty rapidly, in the grand scheme of things. So can you kind of give like how long you've been in sales, officially in sales, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. So I have officially been in sales since September of 2021. So very short amount of time. And none of the careers prior to this was I actually a sales professional. While I had sales in some capacity, it was definitely not that was just a side effect of what I was already doing. It wasn't my focus. So it's been very, very short. And I ended up diving into a sales leadership position in December of 2020. So very quickly in the trenches.
Okay, you said September 21, but you started in sales September 2020, and then a few
Yes.
months later you were promoted.
Yes. Yes. Yep. You're right.
Okay.
December of 2020. Yes. Yep.
All the years kind of intertwined
I know.
together.
It honestly, 2020 and 2021 kind of are like a rapid, like same timeline. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I know. And we're almost, we start Q3, most of us tomorrow. We're halfway through the year tomorrow. And I'm still like, is it 2022?
No, just wait a little bit longer, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you haven't been in sales or sales leadership very long, but you have quite a track record and a resume already. So I would love for you to talk. Well, I'm sure we'll go through a couple of different tangents on this, but what your transition's been, because this is purposely for, aspiring sales leaders, emerging sales leaders, and new sales leaders who are trying to figure it out. And the status quo, like the training and the support, varies tremendously based on who your sales manager is, some of your background. But I did a study in March of 21, a whole leaderboard to leadership survey, and 80% of sales leaders responded that they got zero training going from sales to sales leadership. Now, I know that that was not your personal, like you did get some training provided at your company. And I know you searched for outside stuff as well, which is how the two of us connected. But can you kind of explain that transition? And I know you're still in it because you're a producing sales leader, which is the most challenging position in all of the sales world. Is like the double duty. But just some of the lessons or some of the resources or some of the things that you've done to make this transition easier and make your learning curve shorter and to help like accelerate some of your success, because it's different than what most salespeople do. So sales leaders.
Sure. Yeah. So truthfully, the when I had jumped into sales, I knew that I didn't want to work alone. So while I was a part of a team, geographically, I was quite a distance from the rest of them. And so I took ownership in that fact that if I didn't want to work alone, then I needed to start recruiting and build a team myself. But equally, I knew that if I started to build a team, I was directly responsible for the outcome of their career. I played a huge role in that. So I couldn't just be looking out for me. I like to jokingly say it's a scenario of being in your 20s, you're young, you're single, you're free. You only got to pay your own bills. But the moment that you bring on people to work with, now you're married and you have other people that are dependent on you, right? So I knew from prior careers and watching top level sales professionals or just individuals in general that were very good at their job get promoted into some sort of leadership capacity. And it was an assumption that if you're really good at figuring out how to swim on your own, you will equally be able to teach other people to swim, right? And I watched that fail over and over and over again. I didn't want that to be the case. I knew that I had to reach out and find you and other resources to really teach me how that should be done, because I do take that super seriously that, hey, I need to be able to provide for my family, but I want anyone who is coming on to be able to provide for theirs. So I just recognize, hey, I don't do my own taxes. I pay somebody professionally for that. I don't, you pay for people in their specialties to help guide you in that. And so it just seems silly for me to not have a business coach. So I think that truly was the difference early on for me in between figuring out things quickly versus stubbing my toe and breaking my toe and potentially even leaving the industry as a whole because of the frustrations that come along with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you didn't actually hire me as your coach at first, because we work one-on-one now. You were actually part of a group, one of my group programs, the Leaderboard to Leadership. And I'll be probably launching one in the fall. I'll be launching it next year, early 2023, but I'll be, filling it in the fall. I don't actually do those anymore. I just work with corporate sales leadership teams, but there's been some asking and requesting of that. But I will say, but even in that group, I remember, and it was a wonderful group. But I remember people would say, oh, Andrea, there's something different about Andrea. So it's, you're getting input, but even like what you just said about taking care of your team versus, oh, I'm going to get this big commission check, or I get the title, I feel so important. There was always some levity to what you spoke about and how you responded with your team. And that's just a strength of yours. That's just what you have. How do you think someone else could sort of gain that kind of perspective of really caring about their team? Not that they wouldn't care, right? But it's a switch when you're looking at in sales. It's about your numbers and your promotion and where are you and all the attention and recognition that you get. And then it's a very big responsibility shift to look at, I am responsible for others' livelihoods now in sales. So you do that well, but how would you suggest or any advice for someone else to kind of get there with that mindset?
Right. I would almost guarantee anybody who watches this can directly relate to watching someone that was a leader for them or in a management or some sort of titled position, right? Where they saw a difference between what they said they would do and what they actually did. And we all know the old saying, actions speak louder than words. So making sure that if that's you equally flip the script there. If you're going to be in that sales leadership capacity, you need to know that what you say means nothing. They will forget it. What you do means everything. A great example of that, if you were able to listen to people, I've got a couple outstanding individuals on my team who are not that far away. And I've always said, hey, if you ever need anything, this is part of my hiring process, is if you ever needed anything, I would be there tomorrow if you needed me. I was reading between the lines and I finally said, do you need me to come up and be there with you? And they're like, I would love that, but I don't want to intrude on your business. But that's truly the difference. And I said, I'm going to be there then. I'm driving up tomorrow, and then the other gal too. So it's really what you say versus what you do, right? That is what people, that's who they want to work with. And they're going to do more for you just because they see that you're putting your own business aside to make sure their business is thriving. And equally, that buys into their whole family, right? Their whole family is rallying behind because they see what's happening.
Yep, it's got a ripple effect for sure. Yes. It's funny that I just was digging into this with one of my corporate clients. We were talking about effective sales coaching yesterday. Actually, we had our big monthly session yesterday. And there is a nuance though, because most sales leaders will say, "Hey, if you need me, come talk to me." Like they are willing to be there. I think most sales leaders say that in some sort of capacity. If you need me, come talk to me. But there is a difference. That's a very reactive setup. It's a good premise, but it's reactive because the only time they come to you then is when there's a problem. They're not going to come to you when things are
Right.
going really well. So for the fact that you took the time, and if leaders can somehow structure this in, set a reminder, or just be aware of it to say, do you need me there? Can I help you? What resources or support do you need from me as your sales leader? That's a very different thing. It's saying the same thing, but it's very different than just come talk to me when you have a problem. So it's great
Right.
that you did that. And so are you out of town right now?
I'm not. I'm headed out tomorrow though. So even though it's the 4th of July weekend, that doesn't stop things. So, but this truly is not something that I would have figured out had I not taken your leadership to leaderboard classes and the business coaching, right? I would have stumbled upon it later on, right? I would have had to have burned through and burned bridges with some individuals first. So I will say that is not something that Andrea figured out. That's something Rebecca helped me figure out.
Yeah. Well, and that is something that this was not about. I did not tell Andrea like put a plug in for all this stuff, but it is something that I do talk to sales leaders about. Is like, what do you have to confront? What is unsaid that needs to be said? What is the one hard thing you have to say, or what's the one hard thing you have to do that'll make things easier? Because a lot of times, and I've had conversations with you, like, should I say something about that? Yes, you should. And other leaders saying, I don't know, I'm getting like this feeling. I'm like, you need to address it. And sometimes leaders just think about it, but they don't know how to address. They don't know how to have a hard conversation, or how to confront, or how to give feedback, or how to hold people accountable. And it seems really easy, like the idea does. But then when you have to have that hard conversation, or you have to say that thing, you go, oh, what am I going to do here?
Right. Yes. Yep. It's
What am I going to do
a
here?
lot of stewing it over and role play there. Yes. I would
Yes.
agree.
Oh, role play. We won't even go into that. Everyone hates role playing, but it's really good for you. If you're not role playing with your teams or with your coach,
Right.
you need to do that. Okay, so let's move on. So
Yes.
the next question I have. So, what do you think are your biggest strengths as a sales leader? And then how do you use them to empower your team?
One thing that I will say that I've come to terms with that I find is one of my biggest strengths, and it's actually a double sword because it's a strength and a weakness all at the same time, is I am a very big personality. I love talking to people, so that's definitely a strength. But what I've found in that is that's equally really intimidating for the different individuals, right? That can also be like a ooh. So I've figured out how to leverage that and really read body language and read the situation. That to me has been like my secret power as far as when to close your mouth and because they're comfortable now and let them talk, or where to fill that void because they're uncomfortable because there is a void there. So that's one thing that I've had to really learn how to grasp. But it's that equally that personality that can fill those voids when it needs to, but sit in it when it doesn't need to, and just listen and be adaptive to what's happening around me.
Yep, just like that, slowing down, being aware.
I talk about it being in the moment. I talk about that with my spouse and with my colleagues and my friends a lot because that's something that if you can truly master the skill set of being in the moment, or just everything, your business, your life, everything is more refreshing where you can sit and have somebody say, "What are you thinking about? You seem really in the zone." It's really a beautiful thing to say absolutely nothing. It's beautiful. My mind is not turning with 1,000 things, right? But that's I don't know a lot of people who can genuinely say, I'm thinking about nothing in the moment, in the right moments, right? If you're sitting and looking at a beautiful scenery, or if you're sitting and having someone tell you what they need, if you're able to actually be in the moment, you'll hear what they're telling you that they need. Maybe they won't directly say it, but you can sense it, you can feel it. That's been something I've worked on for a very, very long time, and I'm still continuing to sharpen the blade on that.
Awesome. Yeah, there's this balance with sales leaders. Like you have to be in the moment, and then you also have to be thinking about the next several months ahead, right? Like I
Right.
always say, like sales people think in quarters, and sales leaders think in generations. You know,
Yeah.
but it is
Yeah.
being in the moment. That's not a strong suit of mine. For sure, I can't like just not think of anything. Mine's always racing, but you can work. I'm working on that through like meditation and breathing. You can actually work on that. That's part of that. So let's move on. So what do you wish? This is something that people like salespeople always have these conceptions or perceptions of what they think sales leadership's going to be. What do you wish you would have known? Um, that someone would have told you beforehand before you got into sales leadership? What was like a surprise for you or something like that would have been helpful to know that beforehand?
Yeah. So for me, truly, I think the biggest thing looking back that would have been super helpful to know is that at the end of the day, while you want to make sure that you're doing your best to do the best by that individual, it's emotional for everybody, whether you're the person sitting across because it's not working out and you can see that it's not working out, or the person that is just, there's everybody has baggage. And that's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. It's what makes great sales professionals really good at their job. It is really hard, though, as a sales leader to know when to let their baggage go on the train with them or what you need to hold on to. That part I think is really heavy. And that's probably the biggest part of this career that I wasn't probably prepped for enough was the mental space of that. It's a lot like I just had a conversation with one of my agents who's a new mom, right? Nobody preps you for it. They tell you there's going to be a lot of sleepless nights, but how do they prep you for that season of life, right? And the season of this career was really, you're going to get through it, but it was like you walked into a room assuming that it was going to be cake and flowers and a lot of ta-da, and really it was like, oh, this is a mess in here, it's like a walking time bomb. It's really not that bad, but if you're not conditioned at all, it kind of slaps you across the face, and then you have to balance their emotions with your emotions, with what's healthy, what do you actually need more help with, and what this is not in my wheelhouse at all. You need professional help. So
Yeah.
that's the part that I feel like there was not any warning signs on, is you're dealing with people, and people can get very emotionally invested to the person that they talk to every day.
Yeah, I would say the people problems and the sales leader's responsibility to fix those problems. I think across the board with all of my clients is just they go, I deal with people problems most of the day, or fixing personnel issues, or having conversations so that people kind of get along. You kind of said this before, like salespeople are big feelers, but sales is a transference of feelings, and the biggest feelers are your best salespeople. They can connect. That's a strength.
Yeah.
So they also feel big. And that the emotional and the mental toll, I think, on sales leaders. I've had this conversation so many times with people who aren't clients, people who are, and especially those new sales leaders that go, I just wasn't prepared for how much I'd have to be pouring out of my cup, and there was no one to fill it.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yes. It's very true. Very, very true.
So
And
that's what
figuring
you wish
out
you would have
what
known more of
I,
before
I
you.
wish, yes, I wish I would have known that you're going to need way more than what you think in that cup to expel it into other cups.
So,
Yes.
follow-up question, if you would have known that, do you think you would have been like, yes, I'll be a sales leader?
It depends on how the message was conveyed, because it can be a terrifying message, or it can be a mental resilience. Like, be mentally prepared for the worst, so that way anything better than that is really good and you have a different insight for it. So I do still think at the end of the day, because I enjoy helping others, and that's just a natural progression for me. I've always been big on making sure somebody else is well taken care of. And I see tremendous potential in the careers that we have. And why not be adding that to somebody else's? Hey, this might be a really great fit. Most of the careers that I've ever had, I had no idea that I would be good at had it not been for somebody else seeing it and saying, you actually have the skill set for that. Let's have you do it. So I'm fortunate in that capacity, and I'm trying really hard to learn how to do that for others, because it was such a blessing for me to where I am today.
Yeah, that last point you just said on the last Lessons from Leaderboard to Leadership, Roger Cunningham and I spoke about that a little bit. How, and leaders say this all the time, like, I'm lucky I have a great leader, or I was lucky I had a great leader in those formative years of being in sales and sales leadership. So you got to take those lessons. And I know you've had some phenomenal leaders that have kind of molded you, that you can kind of go back, and you may not learn it in the moment, but then you go back and go, oh, that's exactly how I want to make someone feel, or that's what I have to do to help this salesperson succeed. But it shouldn't be up to luck. It should be something that every sales leader does, because not because they naturally know it. It's not like a natural talent all the time, but they understand, they've been trained, they've been empowered, and they can execute on that.
Yes. Yep. 100%.
They can
Yes.
execute it. Yes. So what's your advice for aspiring, emerging, and new sales leaders so they can be successful right out of the gate? They don't have to churn and burn and kind of, because there are so many people that fail in that first leadership jump, that they go, you know what, this is too much. I'm just going to go back to sales. I'm not meant to be a sales leader. Or they feel like they're failing. They're not, but they feel like they are because it's just so different. So what would your advice be to them to be as successful as possible?
Truly to recognize that you don't know what you don't know, and that's a beautiful thing. But what you do to know it is ultimately the best thing you can ever do. I have people who say, you should read this sales leadership book. You should read this sales leadership book. And that just kills me, because while they are great, what happens when you close the book? Most of us put it on the shelf and we forget that we even read the book, right? So truly it's what you do to figure out how to sharpen the skill set. So let your ego go at the door and recognize that while you were good at that before, now you're in a new wheelhouse. You need to figure out how to run a different marathon. Get the tool sets in place. Recognize very early on that somebody else has probably already been there and done it, but their experience is not going to be the same as yours. None of us, I've had this conversation earlier when somebody said, I'm going to try to be so relatable. I never try to be relatable in that capacity, because even if I had the same thing happen, it's a different journey. So figure out how you can just be that plethora of knowledge and be helpful, and seek out and get that knowledge and those different resources where you can implement on a daily basis and really practice the skill set.
Yeah. It's funny what you say about books. As an author, I went on a tirade a few months ago. I was like, stop reading books if you're not going to do anything after you close that book. Because so many people
Yes.
are like, look at all the books I've read. And you're like, why are you still living in your parents' basement?
Yeah.
It's like this whole, like they just don't do anything with it, but they pat themselves in the back and say, well, Warren Buffett says, or, Bill Gates says to read books. And it's true. Successful people read books. But we could go on a tire. I always just say, like, take 3 points when you're done with the book. If you own the book, write in the back of the book 3 big takeaways, and then schedule the implementation of that. But you're absolutely right. Like, you could read a ton of books. I mean, I read a ton. I know, like you do. We listen to podcasts. We are like always, picking people's brains. But if you're not going to do anything with it, it's really pointless, and that doesn't help your sales team.
Right. Yep. Yes.
And there's some bad advice out there too. So you want to make sure who you're.
There is, yes. And one thing that I equally can say that I was always told from an old leader and mentor was, you only have to be right 51% of the time in life, right? It's the times that you don't try to change that, though, that you're probably stuck in a rut. So maybe make sure that while you're stuck in the rut, you don't have the whole team stuck with you, because you are truly, you're directly impacting their lives and their future and what they think of that sales professional role.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Well, this has been good. One final thing I want to say, because I know that you are hiring right now. And so I
Yes.
wanted to just give you an opportunity. I have no idea who's going to be seeing this and which parts of the country or which parts of the world, but of just talking about like the certain person that if like who is successful or what you're kind of looking for, where you're hiring right now.
Sure. So truly, we really try to pinpoint individuals who are big on customer service and really have a passion for helping others. As I'm looking at the areas of the states, I really try to stay in my footprint as, if you call me, I can be there. If not in 24 hours, at least 48. We're really focusing our efforts right now on the Dakotas, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, Wyoming. There really is a great area for us to really make an impact with that agent and really walk alongside them to the max capacity. Not to say that if the right person wanted to do something down in Texas or New York that we couldn't do it. It's just a little harder with the airlines right now to get there as quickly as I promise people that I can be. So yes, that's
Yes.
what we're looking for.
Okay, good, 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 good. Well, Andrea, I really appreciate you taking the time to share some of your lessons from the leaderboard to leadership. And, people can connect with you. You are tagged on this. So I would recommend anyone who's not connected with Andrea to connect with her. And really like doing whatever you can, everyone, to empower yourself to learn to be the most successful salesperson that you can, or sales leader that you can be, because it has such a tremendous impact on recruiting top talent, retaining them, keeping them happy, developing them, and then of course increasing revenue. So thanks for joining me today.